Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the NBA Front Office Show. We got a lot to break down today. More news on the Portland Trail Blazers and their interest in Ben Simmons. Damian Lillard may be wanting him to come to town. But first, Keith, you're decked out in your Patriots hat there. I can't tell if it's a Patriots shirt that you're wearing.
It is a Patriots shirt.
I'm wearing a Patriots shirt, too. The Patriots now sitting in what, first place? And Mac Jones just on fire, led the team to victory against the Bills. Just a thrilling shootout of a game. Had to love to see that.
Yeah, hey, anytime you can win a game, throwing it back to 1950s football, I'll take it. It was, as I put on Twitter, as Captain America, noted Patriots fan, says, whatever it takes. Right, and they did whatever it took last night to get a win. So I am in a extremely good mood this morning. The Patriots used to be my bellwether, as anybody in my life would tell you. If they won a game, I was fine for a week. If they lost, my whole week was ruined until the next game. I've grown up and matured just a little bit, but yeah, a win still makes me a pretty happy guy.
Well, last night I needed Damian Harris to be a monster, which he was.
Yeah.
But I also needed the Patriots to really, really slow down Josh Allen, and they did not do enough of that. So thank you for handing me that loss. Was a frustrating one. But in any event, we've got some Blazers news to get into here, and Sixers as well. So this came out from Kyle Neubeck, who covers the Philadelphia 76ers. Mentioned that the Sixers are not currently in negotiations for CJ McCollum, which is what we believe would probably be the main piece in a Blazers-Sixers trade, and that as of right now, CJ McCollum is not a piece that the 76ers would be interested in. Keith, you and I talked about yesterday that the offer that's floating around out there, or the potential deal that's floating around out there, CJ McCollum, one of the young guys, maybe it's Anthony Simons, maybe it's Nasir Little, plus a first-round pick, sounds pretty reasonable. But then Sixers are going to Sixer. And now they're saying, not only do we want a ton of picks and all these other things that we would want, we're not even that interested in CJ McCollum.
Yeah, in the initial reporting from Shams Charania and Sam Amick, which came out yesterday, it didn't characterize those negotiations as recent because they were they were couched in. That was when Neil O'Shea was talking with Daryl Morey and those kind of things. So it was more just that framework had been discussed. And then the Sixers pushed back with, we'll take McCollum, and I think it was 4 first-round picks and swaps in the in-between years, which Portland can't even really do because they already owe a protected pick in another trade. So it's just kind of messy. But yeah, my guess is there's some posturing going on now on all sides here. There's going to be a little bit of a push. I don't think, I've said it, I still think Simmons gets traded. I just don't think it happens in the next couple weeks. I think this one probably is a closer to the trade deadline kind of thing, unless for some reason Philly goes on a 5 or 6 game losing streak and it starts to look like the playoffs are going to be really unlikely, then maybe that gives them a little bit of a kick in the pants to make a move. But I think they'll drag this out at least to the trade deadline, which is honestly not the worst thing to do as long as you're playing okay, because that's going to allow you to get the biggest trade packages. And you'll also get to a point where maybe some other team gets really desperate and is willing to throw you in the extra thing or two that you would really like in a deal.
Now, Damian Lillard is under contract for 3 more seasons after this one. $42 million next season, $45 million the season after, $48 million and change season after that, closer to $49 million. But he's also going to be extension eligible this offseason. How big of a factor is that in these discussions? Damian Lillard has not been great this season. The Blazers have not been good at all. Do the Blazers also have to be weighing the possibility, now that O'Shea is not there anymore, of just trading Damian Lillard, as painful as that would be for them?
Yeah, it's hard, right? Because if you're Joe Cronin and you're in charge right now, one is I don't even know that ownership would sign off on that to do that, especially if they're not convinced Cronin's going to be the guy moving forward. And it doesn't sound like he is. It very much sounds like he's kind of a caretaker until they hire someone permanently to run the basketball operations. But so let's say you're the new guy who comes in, and let's say you do come in, anytime between now and the beginning of the off season. Do you really want your first move to be trading away the franchise player, the arguably the best player in franchise history? I don't know, man. That's really, really hard. My guess is you're gonna, at a bare minimum, give it the rest of this season, see if Damian Lillard can get on track. Maybe it's really been this abdominal thing that's caused him to, struggle out of the gate. So that I just don't know that you can come right in and be like, let's do it. I mean, that's heck of a way to start a tenure. And
Yeah.
the good thing is, if you wanted to do a full scale Oklahoma City type teardown, you could come away with an incredible package of picks and young players if you started trading away, because it's beyond Dame, right? CJ McCollum's a guy teams would be interested in,
Covington,
even if Philadelphia isn't. Robert Covington,
Nance,
Yusuf Nurkic. Yeah, Larry Nance. Yeah, exactly. They've got a lot of veteran players that I think you could convince other teams to say, hey, take a shot on. What they don't have is young players that you feel ready, like OKC had, at least Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. You don't have that guy where you feel like, all right, well, this is our guy, so come out and watch him while we reset. But maybe you do that and get into the draft, and this is a pretty good draft. And there's a couple Pacific Northwest kids available at the top of the draft, couple of big men that, if you wanted to early bottom this thing out, you could, but you'd have to get going on that now, because there's a couple teams that have a pretty good head start on you as far as the tanking process goes.
Well, but like OKC got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in the Paul George trade, so it's possible that they could find that piece in a trade. Sure. If they put Damian Lillard out there on the market, 29 teams are going to say, well, will you take this, right? And they're going to put forth some kind of offer, so maybe they could find that piece on the trade front. Not saying I even have somebody in mind who's out there at this point, just if they decide to go down that path. But I agree. I think that type of a move is probably not the most likely thing here. I do think they continue to explore things with Ben Simmons to see if something works out there. But again, just funny that the 76ers kind of put out that he's not a player that we're interested in. CJ McCollum isn't. Like, okay, come on. You can tell us all about how much you don't like the guy. I know you're trying to drive the price down, but the 76ers at some point are going to have to come down to earth too.
And I get it too. Maybe what they're saying is, hey, Portland, go get a third team.
Sure.
Because we don't want McCollum. And I can kind of understand it, right? If Tyrese Maxey's not going to be part of the trade, it's going to be hard to play Maxey, Curry, and McCollum enough minutes for the three to be really effective. So that does get a little tricky to figure out and pull off. You would still need wing help, probably, depending on where you go. Up front, you're probably okay with Embiid, Harris, Niang, and Drummond. But yeah, you'd still need another wing in that case. So yeah, let's see, where this all comes together. But yeah, it's I wouldn't be fully surprised if Philly's not super enthused on CJ McCollum, unless they either have another trade lined up to get themselves the wing help they need, or it's, hey, let's rope in a third team where McCollum gets routed there and we get the wing help that we need instead from them.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's jump to my team. LeBron James had some comments yesterday about Frank Vogel and the criticism he's received. There's been varying degrees of speculation that Vogel could be on the hot seat given the Lakers' slow start compared to what the expectations were coming into the season. Obviously, there have been a lot of external factors as well in terms of injuries and suspensions and health and safety protocols and everything else. But LeBron was asked about the criticism Vogel has received, and he didn't exactly give a ringing endorsement. Here's what he said. He said, I think criticism comes with the job. Frank is a strong-minded guy. He has a great coaching staff, and we as his players have to do better job of going out and producing on the floor. We're a team and an organization that doesn't mind some adversity, that don't mind people saying things about us, obviously, because it comes with the territory. So, I mean, LeBron says Vogel has a great coaching staff, says we don't mind people saying things. Like, there's nothing overtly negative that he says here, but he also doesn't specifically say, oh, this criticism is unwarranted. Frank Vogel is a great coach. No, he says he has a great coaching staff. I don't want to read too much into this, but there was an opportunity there too for Frank Vogel or for LeBron to go to bat for his coach, and he didn't really do it.
Yeah, I mean, in one sense, you'd like him to come out and be like, hey, knock it off. Yeah. Like, Frank Vogel's fine. He's not the problem here. In another sense, I think there are people who would very much like LeBron to come out and be like, he stinks. We need a new coach.
Sure.
Right. I see enough of that all over social media, especially in your mentions on a very regular basis. I also think right, he kind of played it down the middle. I mean, he's a smart guy. He's never going to say, all that much. He put it on the players too, which is also true.
Absolutely.
I mean, the reality is you probably they do need her, but yeah, I'm very interested to see what happens with the Lakers just for a whole bunch of reasons. Just because we've said it over and over and over again, there's no easy trade here. There's no easy moves to make to bring in help. And as the saying goes, and it's held true forever, is you can't fire all the players, so you usually fire the coach. So I continue to maintain if we get to Christmas and they're still 500-ish, maybe there is a change that's made. If for no other reason, hey, let's try to shake this up and give ourselves some life going into the calendar year and into the stretch run of the season.
Yeah, it's really the one thing you can do, right, is to get rid of the coach, or the easiest move to make is to change out the coach and then see if that works. And if not, it's like when you're doing home repair, right? And you've got your cheap option to fix something, and then you've got your really expensive option. Well, you're going to try the cheap option first, and if it works, great, you're golden. And then if it doesn't work, then you're probably going to go to the more expensive option. And I wish I had, not being much of a handyman, I don't have a great example to give you off the top of my head, but that's kind of the scenario the Lakers are in, where they can try to do something that would be fairly cost effective in terms of just changing out the coach. And if that doesn't work, then you start to take more drastic measures. But we'll see where things go from here. Keith,
hey, you ever watch HGTV shows? Like,
sometimes.
Do you watch some of those? You ever watch the ones where they're like, you can do this whole makeover of this room in your house,
and it's way less than what it actually is. Yeah,
and it's like, well, but it's like, yeah, if you're a trained like contractor that can do the electrical and the plumbing and all that stuff yourself,
and all the supplies are donated because you're on the TV show,
exactly, and you have all the tools already available. It's like, yes, I agree. I can go to Home Depot and buy all the same materials for the amount of money you're telling me, but then I have to hire skilled craftsmen to do whatever it is, and they have to have all the tools. I don't just have this stuff laying around my house, nor do I have the skill. So I always laugh at that when I see those shows. It's like, yeah, if you're me hosting my own HGTV show, you can do this for $50, and it's like, but if you're you, it's going to cost you $1,000.
My father-in-law is just retired, and he was a contractor, and then whenever they come over, we would put on HGTV because it's just, just fairly bland, whatever programming, that everybody will, it's just background noise as you're talking and stuff. But things would come up, and it would be like, redo this kitchen for $5,000, and he'd be like, quadruple that. That's how much that costs. And it gets ridiculous. But in any event, back to basketball. So we'll see what does happen with the Lakers. But we do know one thing that's happening with the Lakers. They're playing your Celtics tonight.
Yeah.
And Keith, what's the injury front on this? For the Lakers, it sounds like Carmelo Anthony is sick, but we don't know yet for sure whether or not he's going to play. Other than that, it sounds like everybody that would be expected to play, Trevor Ariza, Kendrick Nunn, obviously not playing. Everybody else should be available. What's the situation like on your end?
Yeah, Al Horford is going to be back. He sat out the second night of a back-to-back up in Portland the other night, but he's back. They called it lower back soreness or tightness, but really it was he's old, and it was the second night of a back-to-back with travel. And he played a lot of minutes against Utah the prior night. Romeo Langford rolled an ankle in the Utah game, missed the Portland game. He's going to be back. But the big one is Jaylen Brown. Yeah. He's still dealing with the hamstring issue. The Celtics have now said basically Jaylen Brown wants to play, and he wants to play through this. If you've watched, he doesn't look right. He's not moving as well. He's not as explosive. He had a play in the last game he played where it was a fast break, and he just kind of couldn't get the lift that you usually see with him. And he's usually one of the more explosive players in the league. So we'll see. Ime Udoka before the Portland game said Jaylen Brown was basically begging him to let him play. And he said, we're going to be really careful with this because it's a hamstring. You don't want that turning into a month-long thing, or even like a James Harden deal where you're just, it doesn't get better. So we'll see if he goes tonight. I kind of have my doubts he'll play tonight. I don't think he'll play both ends. They have the LA back-to-back with the Clippers tomorrow night as well. So let's see what that looks like.
That means he's playing tonight and he's not playing tomorrow. Let me just clear that up. He's playing tonight.
Yeah,
he's not playing tomorrow.
Lakers fans in my mentions saying, oh great, so we're going to get everybody tonight, and then they'll all sit out tomorrow against the Clippers.
And that's also why Al Horford sat out in the last game, just like the Clippers did when they played the Lakers. They sat Paul George the game before to make sure he was all rested up. Yeah.
What's crazy for the Celtics is they get the Clippers coming off a 3-day rest.
Yeah.
On a back-to-back, and then they have a day off and have to go play the Suns. Suns coming off a 3-day rest. So this is a tough road trip. I've said all along, if they can pull off 2 and 3 on this road trip, that's really good. And then they get back home in the middle of December for a long stretch. I think by the end of the road trip, they'll have played more road games to home games than any team in the league. Part of that just comes with an early road trip, but they had a very road heavy early schedule, and then things starting to lighten up a little bit as far as travel goes, but they don't play all the way through December. I don't think they play another team that's under 500 for the rest of the month. So
that should result in a pretty light second half of the schedule, though. Which
hopefully, and by the second half too, some of these teams that are good now won't be because they'll have transition to other priorities.
Right. Okay. Speaking of hamstrings. Like that. Alex Caruso. Alex Caruso out at least a week. Like you mentioned, hamstrings are something that you usually don't want to mess around with, can be tricky. And so no surprise here that he's out at least a week. Wouldn't be a shock at all if he was out longer, because like you said, it's the kind of thing where if you aren't 100% and you come back, it can very quickly turn into something that's, okay, now you're out for a month. Now you're out for 6 weeks, because hamstrings are just notoriously just tricky like that. So Caruso out at least a week. Hopefully he does get fully 100% healthy before they put him back out on the floor.
Yeah, and Billy Donovan also added he's got a little bit of a calf issue too. So sounds like this is a chance. But the problem for the Bulls is, boy, they're starting to get real shorthanded.
Yeah.
DeMar DeRozan went into the COVID-19 health and safety protocols. The sources indicate, came out, I believe Shams Charania was the first one to have this, that he had a positive test, which would mean that's a minimum of a 10-day absence, unless, of course, he returns the 2 negative tests 24 hours apart. But the Bulls now, it's Caruso, DeRozan, Kobe White, Patrick Williams all on the shelf for key contributors. Because of the COVID-19 related positive tests, the Bulls would be eligible for a hardship exemption right away, that they could go and add a player and bring someone in for short term on this. So let's see if they go that direction or not. Their challenge is Chicago's trying to keep, I think, some flexibility under the hard cap, because if you remember, they did the sign and trade, and they're only about $9.5 million under the hard cap. That is more than enough right now, but if you want to make a trade later in the year, you want to be able to bring on some salary. So maybe they'll go without adding a player, maybe lean on their two-way players a little bit more. We'll see, but the injuries starting to mount as multiple rotation players out for the Bulls who have gotten off to a really, really good start.
Absolutely. And just to wrap it up here, with Alex Caruso in particular, he only knows 100 miles an hour. So it's not like you can tell him, hey, go ahead and play, but take it easy. So just something to keep in mind with him. That's his personality. Ish Smith also dealing with health and safety protocols.
5 guys from the Hornets now, including really all 5 are rotation guys. And when you only play about a 9-man rotation as they do, that's not so good. They actually started last night. Did you see their starting lineup last night?
I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, they went without a point guard.
They went to OT against Philly. I mean, Gordon Hayward can kind of handle the ball a little bit for you, and so that's what they went to. But no point. But still, they went to OT against the 76ers, which is just really good. I mean, sometimes you get these circle the wagon situations where the team can just really come together and everybody is locked in because they know, okay, I've got to be on my A game if we're going to get anything done. But unfortunately, they still came up short in this one. But I mean, when you look at their starting lineup, it's like, my goodness, where did everybody's gone?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it was Hayward and Kelly Oubre did a lot of the ball handling. James Bouknight was essentially the backup point guard, the rookie. So yeah, it's gonna be rough for Charlotte here. They are also now eligible to add a player for the hardship. My guess is maybe they go get a point guard out of the G League, just get somebody up just to give them some semblance of a ball handler on the roster, because you can get away with this for a game or two. Philly was without Tyrese Maxey, so that made it a little bit easier because their kind of primary ball handlers were Shake Milton, Seth Curry, who are not really speedy playmakers or anything like that. So yeah, my guess is Charlotte will go the hardship and add a point guard eventually. And when they do, we'll let you know.
And the last story for us to get to, NBA expansion.
Yeah.
No surprise here, is likely to include Seattle. I think that's got to be the approach, right? Has been, let's say they're going to add in 2 teams. It's Seattle, and then let's figure out who the other one is going to be. I think that's got to be the lock, is to bring a team back to Seattle.
Yeah, 100%. It's Seattle. Never should have lost the Sonics in the first place. So, see, the thought has been, anybody I ever talked to on this is it'll be Seattle and another West team, whether that be Las Vegas or some other team that can go into the West, with the idea then being either Memphis or Minnesota moves east. Probably Memphis. Memphis is probably the most misplaced team as being considered a West team as there is in the league. Now, if you look on a map, which I have done, they're the easternmost Western Conference team, and they would be the westernmost Eastern Conference team, but they're still a heck of a lot closer to a lot of East teams. There's also a lot of thoughts of, if they go to 32 teams, that it's time to kind of redo the whole deal, really look at divisions and all this other stuff with that. But this comment came out of an article by John Hollinger, and what it was he was at the Gonzaga Alabama game, which was played at Climate Pledge Arena, which that is the former Key Arena in downtown Seattle. Yeah. And it was basically, he said, like, the renovations, which they did for the Seattle Kraken, the expansion NHL team, is like that really brought the arena up to standard for what you're looking for now. With that, they added a bunch of seats to the place and all that. So yeah, let's hope Seattle gets a team back soon. I'm on record saying the NBA has more than enough talent to expand. I know it's funny that people are like, did you see what happened with Oklahoma City and Memphis? And it's like, yeah, kind of on purpose. I mean, not to lose that bad, but yeah, I mean, when you look at some of the guys who don't get minutes on NBA teams right now, there's a handful of you could build yourself a decent expansion roster out of that. Plus, selfishly, I want the content, because I'll get a year's worth of content out of expansion stuff, with expansion drafts, protected lists, trades, all the other stuff that goes into it. So but the NBA roster nerd in me wants this desperately.
Well, that's part of it. And I agree. Selfishly, that would be fantastic for us and for our show and everything like that. But I look at what the NBA has got in terms of the way they set up expansion. It's not quite like MLS. An expansion team can come in and be good right away. NHL, an expansion team can come in and be good right away. The NBA kind of makes it so expansion teams have to be bad right away. Like in terms of the salary restrictions and things like that they place on them. Not saying an expansion team would be expected to come in and be good anyway, but they also kind of make it clear that, okay, you're going to come in and you're going to pay your dues here because you're going to be the doormat for a while if you're an expansion team. Just the way things are set up in terms of how they would build out a roster. In terms of the map, Memphis makes a lot of sense. But if you're Minnesota too, you're kind of off on an island. There's no Western Conference teams anywhere close to Minnesota. The closest is Denver. Like, that's the closest team to the Wolves.
They're closer to the Bucks and the Bulls than they are to.
And the Pacers and the Pistons and the Cavs. I mean, they just looking at the map, they look like they're even closer to the Raptors than they are to their closest Western Conference team.
Yeah, it's definitely, if they go to the expansion, which everything is said, it will be 2 teams. They don't want to go on the odd number like they had a couple years ago when they brought in who was it? They were at 29 teams now, but completely is out of my brain here.
They brought in Orlando. They brought in
they brought in Orlando, Miami, Minnesota, and Charlotte. The original Charlotte team all came in together, and then the other
when they brought in the Bobcats.
Yeah,
is that what you're thinking?
Yes, I think so, right?
Yeah.
But whatever it was, that they don't want to be back to an odd number of teams. They want to be on an even number. So there'll be 2 teams that come in for sure. But with that, so we'll see, how that all kind of comes together with that. So it's going to be interesting. One other piece of news. It's not exactly breaking news here because this has been out there for a while and it's really not NBA news, but it will impact the NBA. Is Canada, effective January 15th, you have to be fully vaccinated to enter Canada as a foreigner to Canada. So you will be if you're not vaccinated, you won't be able to go play in Canada. So that's January 15th with that. So it's they go in, they won't be able to go. It also says anybody, Woj added a little bit of color, any unvaccinated NBA player with temporary visa status, so that's essentially a non-American born player, leaving the country will be unable to re-enter the United States, according to a memo obtained by ESPN. For example, a player would be unable to re-enter after playing in Canada or traveling outside the U.S. on All-Star weekend. So much like they did last year, even though All-Star wasn't what it normally is, they really pushed everybody, like, don't go like, stay home. With that. So let's see where that goes. But it's we're still in this, right? And it's there's still stuff. I mean, we're still seeing people go down. They're also really pushing. Tim Reynolds of the AP reported we're up over 60% of players have received the booster. The NBA is hoping that number will get even higher in the coming days as well. They're really pushing that to try to avoid guys being out. Billy Donovan was asked, I think, just because they're going through it right now with the Bulls with COVID, had there been any thought process or questions to shutting down again or shutting even a team down, and he said as far as he knows nothing has been even considered on that. I've asked around a little bit and a lot of people said no, it's not going to be. You'd have to have a full-scale outbreak where 7-8 guys from a team like what we were seeing last season happen. So
which we were getting there with the Hornets, but again that's one team right now, so I don't think that's the path that we're headed down, but we'll see.
Hey, let's close with something else that makes me smile. A big smile. Larry Bird's birthday today. The legend, 65 years old. My all-time favorite player. Let's hope the Celtics can get him a win in one of his favorite places to get a win tonight.
Larry Bird. For some reason, when you said that, I popped back to the old McDonald's commercials with Larry Bird in them. And what was it, Larry and Magic and Michael Jordan?
Playing horse?
Yeah, those were great. Those were great. Off the backboard, off the side of the roof. And, anyway, those were fantastic.
No doubt.
All right, everybody. Tonight, Keith and I will be keeping our fingers crossed that our individual teams get a win. Tomorrow, we'll see if we're still friends. Till then, see ya. And stay